The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Business Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericabusiness.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to CIO Talk Radio with your host, Sanjo Gall. All comments, views, and opinions expressed on this show are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers. Here's Sanjo Gall.
Good morning and welcome to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Today's topic is the CIO as a successful influence manager. And our guests for today's show are Brian Zimmerman, who's the Vice President and Chief Information Officer with Subaru of America. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Good morning, Sanjo. How are we doing today?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Hope you'll have fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So we also have Jerry McCartney, who's the VP of Technology and Chief Information Officer for Purdue University. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Sanjog.
How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you.
How's the weather?
Excellent here in Boilermaker land.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we have Kevin Walker, who's the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer with American Electric Power Company. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Sanjo. How are you?
Very good, very good. So life is good?
It is good.
Very nice. So how is it so let's look at this topic about being an influence manager. And just before we were to get started, we were talking about what does this particular skill bring to the table. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about is that, when you put some money into a bank, like you deposit some money, first you have to deposit before you can withdraw. So would you not call influence management to be somewhat same, where you put in some good deeds, you put in some good, build some good relationships before you can reap the right type of results out of it? So, Brian, what do you think?
Well, I think, the key to, every one of this influence process is to solve problems for the business, go after, kind of as you mentioned, the low-hanging fruit. So, to put those dollars in the bank, especially as potentially a new person in a role, you go out there, you find some of these easy projects that you can satisfy business requirements, deliver, build some positive reputation, and then at that point you start to begin to be able to influence, the direction you may want to achieve.
Now, question for you is that if you do a lot of good deeds as a CIO and take care of IT a whole lot, would you not be still a best-kept secret because user says that I only want to see IT when I have a problem? And if there's no problem, they don't really care and they don't want to. IT does not exist in their sphere of who they hang out with.
I think if you extend that a little bit further, one of the things that a really good CIO is focused on is really solving business issues, not necessarily technology. And exactly what you've said is key. You need to go out there and find the business issues to resolve to help the business. The focus on the plumbing and the back office is important. But it's only known when there's a problem. And the way to build that relationship is really to solve those business issues.
So, Jerry, what kind of deposits do you think an IT leader should make in order for them to get some withdrawal out of it?
Well, they got to be credible, Sanjog, and I know we've already discussed this. There's 3 stages to any project, as far as I can see: plan it, do it, and then tell everybody what you've done. And, engineers in particular are kind of bad at that last thing. And sometimes they're not all terribly good at the first part of it either. That what I refer to as engineer's disease is, if you loved me, you'd know how valuable I am to the company. I shouldn't have to tell you. But especially in IT, where you can be like a referee on a football field and often only visible when you're screwing up, that it's very important that when the CIO does something, when the IT organization does something of value for the entity, of value to another operating unit, that we're able to tell that story in an effective way. That, I think, is a way of building credibility and making people aware internally to your IT organization and elsewhere in your organization what IT can do for the enterprise.
So would you say a CIO should get a boot camp on marketing, would you say, to make some noise and a positive noise?
Yeah, and I mean, marketing at a very high level. I mean, nobody's terribly enthusiastic about people that go around tooting their horn all the time, but that typically isn't a problem in IT. We tend to be more problem-focused than benefit-focused. And so part of I think, being a successful CIO is the other line executives understanding the value that IT can bring based on their experience and their colleagues' experience, so that the CIO and the IT organization are sought out for assistance in solving, strategic problems.
So, Kevin, what do you think here?
Well, so being a relatively new CIO, and I shared with you guys before, I've come from the operating side of the house. So I've been in the CIO role for about a year and a half. I think establishing expectations up front is important. The business unit's expectation of IT may be strictly tactical. I want this thing, you provide this thing, and therefore I check the block to say that you're a good IT department. I think having a strategic discussion about how IT can partner to facilitate the objectives of the business unit. Partnering is different from order taking. I think there's an evolution in the IT space that we're not here to build 15 different systems that do the same thing, because we have 15 different facing customers that want a different system that they've seen somewhere. We've got to think about aggregation and sustainability and maintenance going forward, and cost and all those other things on a corporate level. So I think creating the expectations that are appropriate for a real partnering IT unit with the business unit up front is important, and then you can gain credibility in the right way, not doing everything that I want, but doing what's best for the organization overall.
So, Kevin, since you were on the operations, that side of the house, you must have overheard water cooler conversations. Did you ever? What type of conversations did you hear, and how much of that was of saying something positive about IT? That if they came back with some help from my side, I will definitely give my arm and leg for this because they really helped me out. How much of that did you hear?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, I was an operating company president, and if there was no problem going on, then we didn't really think about IT. As long as the BlackBerries and the cell phones and the mobile data units and the ability to sign in from home and all those things worked, we didn't think so much about IT as a strategic business partner. Part of that was our fault because we hadn't evolved our thinking to how that could be helpful, and part of that was IT's fault, I think, for not positioning and not doing that marketing that Jerry was talking about. So I think it was in a problem solution type nature. We got to we can't get out all of a sudden to our customers. What's the problem? IT, you got to fix it. We've got a huge storm, and we our data's slowing down, and we don't know where our outages are. We've got to fix that. But we never had IT sitting at the table saying, okay, here's our strategic direction for the next 5 years. How can IT help us move down this path? And I think we're evolving to that point now.
So unless otherwise there is a storm or there is something which is totally disruptive, would you say IT would not come into picture? Because for a business user, you are a utility as IT.
Yeah.
And if you keep doing what you're supposed to do, like electricity or as phone, then we're fine. And so you got to have those disruptions, and that could be something, not a natural disaster. You could be creating such disruptive events. You could stage some of them, not create a problem and then solve it, but create some disruptive events, which is basically saying, now you're working at this level of efficiency and productivity. Let me take you to totally unprecedented level of productivity. Right. Would that be something that you would expect out of IT then?
Well, the good thing about real life is that does happen, and we all have just gone through, hopefully coming out the other end of a huge disruption through the economic challenges that are happening around the world. So, never let a good crisis go to waste. So, there's those opportunities that happen in real life to feature the strategic partnership capability of IT and not just a tactical fix-it sort of solution.
So, Brian, do you think IT leaders should also be wearing a PR hat of sorts? or find out ways to do some good PR?
I mean, I think absolutely. I mean, I think as Kevin had said that the water cooler discussions are not the only way, I think, to get your message out there. You have to be spending, especially at the executive level, time in front of the senior executives of the company. To really be successful, you need to have a seat at the table. So, as the senior management meetings occur, you need to be involved and understand where the business direction is going, as well as take it to the next level and turn around to the senior group and say, here's the direction we're going. Let's do the PR. Let's show what we've been able to achieve, and let's show what we're attempting to achieve over the next 12 to 18 months. So you must be out there constantly working directly with the business, either that senior management team directly or their direct reports, to ensure that message is out there and that they understand where you're going and how you're trying to help the business.
Jerry, question for you.
Sure.
If we are talking about getting a seat at the table, which automatically means we're trying to get a seat at the board, why not also find a seat on the shop floor? Because people who give you thumbs up or thumbs down are not only the executive management folks either.
Right. Well, I mean, this has got to be a thoroughgoing relationship. If it's only the CIO that's engaging the rest of the company and everybody else is off in a bunker somewhere, that's a bad way to do business also. So as appropriately throughout your organization, the CIO's main patch is going to be the other executives. But your programming leads, your operations people, they should understand what goes on in other parts of the business. So I'm a big fan of not physically isolating IT people, of regular and routine opportunities for people to get together and hear what's going on elsewhere in the organization. I don't like the idea of the CIO being the font of all wisdom about what's going on elsewhere in the company either. That's a fairly dangerous path to go down. It's better than not having no avenue at all. But if we're going to have shop floor presence, if we're going to have sales, marketing, finance, accounting presence, then we should have people that know the inside of those businesses well. Because the way the opportunities present themselves is someone will say, a line manager will say, I'm having a terrible problem with thus and such. And let's just assume it's not an IT problem right now. But that we can come with a creative way of solving that problem. Well, I've got to have people throughout my organization that know how accounting does their business and knows the kind of things they worry about and that care about, so that we can respond in a way that sounds like a solution they would have designed as opposed to a solution a crowd of IT people designed. See where I'm going with that?
Sure. So let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages. And we talk about, when Jerry, you mentioned that we should have other people who are along the chain of command also be on the street talking to the business users and kind of understand the agendas and wants. Is there some sort of a communication mechanism which can be created where, without losing anything in translation, we truly come to know about the obvious and the hidden agendas and or needs and wants of those people who, if we meet properly, then we will get the required level of following and or respect, and then you'll be able to exert the influence that you always wanted to as an IT leader. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back and discuss.
Up-to-date business and financial news. Call now and get the financial information you need. 866-472-5790. 866-472-5790.
The experts are here.
Voice America Business Network.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
Do you realize how much the way you think and feel controls everything in your life? On Neurogenesis, join Dr. Joe Dispenza as he answers a wide variety of questions, from topics like the mind-body connection to the process of personal change, the origins of disease to emotions and brain chemistry, just to name a few. There is a true biology to personal transformation, and it applies to you. Neurogenesis with Dr. Joe Dispenza broadcasts a new program every other Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time on the Seventh Wave Network. Tune in so you can lose your mind and create a new one.
There are two fundamentals required for business success today. The first is a robust strategy, one that's in sync with the marketplace and has a focus on delivering value. The second business fundamental is talent. The single biggest factor in the sustained health of a company is having the right people in the right roles, doing the right things. Join Michael Couch, the president of Michael Couch & Associates, each week as he explores elements of these two fundamentals on the Voice of Business Growth. Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific, on the Voice America Business Channel.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Gall.
Welcome back. So, Kevin, let's start with you. What do you think is the way we can go all the way down to the shop floor and middle management and kind of have your people be working at such a level and give at all different levels so that respect and, need or they would like to actually follow you as an IT department, not truly as a leader, but as an IT department. The whole IT department becomes a Pied Piper then.
Yeah, I think there's several ways. Certainly we have business analysts who their whole role is to be close to the business. They're kind of embedded with the business. While they report to the IT chain, they spend 95% of their time being part super sleuth, trying to figure out the unknown pain points that customers have that they're not able to articulate. Maybe psychoanalysts determining what's inside the heads of our customers and what they need, and I think they can do that best being right there on the, as you say, shop floor. So they're kind of embedded. Then we have a planning organization where our planning managers are looking at project bases and doing similar things. So it's interesting because I have the other problem with some of my planning managers. I have to tell them that you still work in IT, so you've got to make sure that you keep the perspective of the entire corporation and not just the business unit that you happen to face. But they are embedded at that level as well to understand what the customer business partners' needs are. And then there's documents. We're an organization of documents, as I think that many others are. So if we take the time to read the documents that the business units put out, they usually state what their focuses are and what they're trying to achieve. And they go down to some fair level of detail, so we should be able to gain intelligence from that, and then send that back to the business unit and say how we can help. So there's many opportunities. It is a little bit of a cobbling together. There's not one source, but I think if you pull all those sources together and it has common themes, you can figure out the really important things that are facing the business units.
So, Brian, do you see there are possibilities of things falling through the crack or something getting lost in translation? Because, frankly, there are human beings talking to other human beings.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, just to follow on a little bit what Kevin said, one of the examples that I always love to give of how to try to get your business analysts in line with really what's going on in the business is actually get them to do the job. In the case of, as an example, in our fulfillment center, when we were getting ready to implement a new warehouse management system, took the business analysts and said, go out there and do some picking and packing, do some receiving, understand how it works. Now, we're not going to understand all the ins and outs, but when you put yourself in that position, number one, you get a better understanding of what that business process is. And number two, people that are out there in the warehouse look at you like, oh, maybe you are a real person. Maybe I can talk to you. And so you can build that relationship with, oh, well, maybe they'll come back to that person in the future, say, you were down here and I was thinking about this. So, just as one little example to kind of expand on, actually what Kevin had to say as an example.
Now, in your view, or what your crew told you, were they supposed to extract that information out of the business user community, or are they willing to tell it just that nobody ever asked them earlier?
I think, the goal of that exercise is twofold. I think one is, building that relationship, trying to really understand what they're doing. I mean, this example that I'm using, the person actually had been here for 4 or 5 years, never been in the warehouse, and had been working on warehouse management systems. And then the inverse is, while you're out there doing that job, you kind of say, how do I think it could be done easier if I'm physically doing it? So there are multiple goals that you achieve as part of that exercise to try to gain, respect, understanding, as well as, okay, now how can I help you? I've been out here for a couple of weeks helping you with your job, physically doing the work. I see some ideas. I throw them back to you. What do you think? Would that make sense? Is that, so again, it's building that relationship to really gather that information.
So, Jerry, if the life was that good, then we would not be having this show. So there must be something going wrong, because of which we still see the user community seeing IT folks as aliens to some extent. And that's why the relationships are not still as warm, and the reciprocation, or them coming and volunteering information and suggestions on how IT could look good, etc., is not happening. So what do you think could be going wrong here?
Well, IT, I think, is still seen as a threat. People do regard change somewhat negatively, especially change that they're not in control of. I think those are two just large kind of things that have to be borne in mind. And, I just want to echo, what we've been hearing is that I'm a big fan of rotating people in and out of organizations. So I would want to welcome people from other organizations into my IT organization. And, similarly, I would encourage my IT folks to go and work in different lines of business within our organization, because I think that's what helps, breaking down this us and them view of how the organization works. It's best done by actually moving people around. And you'll have a lot of folks who will dig their heel. Well, that's not possible. I've got 20 years of skills here to enable me to do my job right. But at some point, you've kind of got to, as a manager, say, well, the principle here is more important than the individual affect of how this is going to work out. I had a great performer who retired a year ago, and I had a conversation with her after she'd retired. I said, looking back, what would you have done different? She said, well, I worked in the same group, actually, within the IT organization for more than 20 years, and she was a very high performer in that group. And she said, I wish somebody would have made me go and work elsewhere in the organization, because certainly towards the end of my career, the last 5 or 8 years, it cost her professionally that she had no experience other than the experience she'd picked up in this particular group. And she had the wisdom to say, I would have fought it like heck at the time, and I know I wouldn't have liked it, but I know it would have been good for me, and I wish somebody had made me. And that's the kind of the challenge, I think, that operates on a daily basis. Nobody likes to be moved around. So maybe what we need to do is create jobs where it's part of the job description that we rotate people through various functional areas, so everybody knows coming in, I'm going to do this for 2 years, and I'm going to do that for 2 years, and I'm going to do the other thing for 2 years. I think right now, if you bring up the topic, the initial reaction of many people would be, what am I doing wrong in this job that you want to get rid of me or shunt me off somewhere else? It's not necessarily seen as a growth opportunity.
Now, based on what Jerry suggested, Brian, do you think we have enough disposable, or not exactly disposable, but then spare IT talent available to do the job, because we are always struggling to get the next resource to be able to do this moving around?
Well, I think the reality is, and I absolutely support, Jerry's comments, you really can't be successful if you don't. Now, I think Jerry gave an exception of someone who did the same job for 20 years and was a high performer that whole time. People have a tendency to, at the high performer level, especially, want to learn new areas, want to learn new ideas, and yeah, there's always, a lack of risk, the risk-averse mindset too. I'm concerned that I'm a high performer here, I may not be in this other area that I may be focused on. So, I agree wholeheartedly that we were always under the 8 ball, behind the gun, working on trying to achieve the results, but you need to constantly focus on the development of your people and moving across those functional areas, because those high performers actually have a tendency to say, I'm bored. I don't see anything else here. I don't want to take a risk. I want to go to another company, maybe doing the same area, but learning a different company. So in the end, if you don't do some of that cross-training from the functional side, you may end up hurting yourself because that person may leave.
So, Kevin, would you have 2 years back or earlier sent somebody from a business area to IT to get the same kind of cross-functional training?
To be honest, I don't know if I would have thought about that, only because most folks in a role are thinking short-term and long-term. When I was in my previous role, I was thinking about what I needed to do today and what I needed to do for the next 5 years, and wasn't necessarily focused on expanding people's opportunity outside of what I thought was already a pretty expansive environment. I mean, there was regulatory and customer service and safety and the actual engineering piece of the business and political relations. So it was a pretty broad swatch already. So I hadn't really thought about where people might want to go outside of that. I do embrace that and have done it in the past. Just in the former role, I didn't really think about doing that for others there. Now I had folks working for me who had come from IT, so that was already a switch that had been made. Someone who was in the IT, actually she was in the engineering group. She went to IT, came back to the operating side of the house. And since I've been here, we've had people come from the IT side and go out to become operating company president. So our CEO really believes in the cross-fertilization of positions. Now, I'll address one of your points about, do we have the capacity to do it? Being the new person in IT, I don't want everybody working for me to be a new person in IT. And I don't want everyone working for them to be a nerd person in IT. There needs to be some experts with some deep knowledge, especially when you have an organization that is technically based, that is platform based, and the history is important. So I think we have to have a nice balance. Everybody can't be a year into their job, and nor do we want everybody in their 25th year of their same role.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages and look at the influence management when we want to exert an influence. The basis of this is that you're sitting and trying to create influence based on the role that you're playing. Now, would people salute the role or would people salute the individuals? So how do we remove ourselves from that role? And because at the end of the day, relationships are formed between two people and not two different roles. So what is that we have to do in order for us to be able to create that relationship, remove ourselves from the role? And if at all you have a predecessor who had created a negative image about that role, how could you undo that? Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
Do you need directions to solid financial future? If so, the Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with a roadmap to making smart money decisions in every area of your personal finances. Join Jordan every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern for the Money Answers Show on the Voice America Business Channel. Learn how and where to get the best deals on mortgages, cars, and insurance. Find out the best ways to save for college and retirement, get out of debt, improve your credit rating, and save on your taxes. The Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with great tips on investment opportunities in real estate, stocks, annuities, and other investment vehicles. That's the Money Answers Show with Jordan Goodman on the Voice America Business Channel every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
From the boardroom to you, Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjo Gall.
Welcome back. So we are trying to identify whether it is the influence to be created with respect to a role that we are assuming, or is it more as individuals? And if it is a role, then how do you clean up the image, if at all it was tarnished by someone who was there previously? And what kind of damage control would you do? So let's start with you, Brian.
Well, I think first of all, your first question is it the role or is it the person? And it's actually both, because when you're in a senior role, people do look at you a little differently than if you're not in a senior role. It's actually, in a few cases, I forget that because I try to get down and deal with the people directly. I think, though, when you're dealing with, attempting to influence others, and it really needs to be the person and not the role. And that's kind of the way I portray myself in my role. Is I'm out there with the people, as one of the people, to try to help understand what those business issues are, and help try to focus on resolving those business issues, versus just sitting in my little ivory tower and saying, I'm this CIO and I don't need to get my hands and feet dirty.
Kevin?
Hello?
Yes, Kevin,
you there? Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can now. I had a break, so could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I'm basically asking about this the difference of a person assuming a role and then trying to get an influence management technique adopted for that given role, or would this be more of a personal thing? Would you be?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, I had a break in the connection here. I think it's both, as Brian started off talking about, organizationally, and I was just having this discussion today. It's interesting that we're chatting about it now. Organizationally, sometimes the CIO sits, just that role sits at the right or left hand of the CEO, and just by nature of that proximity to the head of the company, there's a role-based influence and gravitas that comes with the position. I think at the end of the day, though, the person in that role can maximize that or minimize it, and conversely, you could be further away from the CEO, roles-based, and have a great amount of influence. based on your personal credibility and ability to manage relationships with business partners. So it's both. If I had to have one or the other, I think I'd choose the personal relationship over the positional, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to people, I think, relating to each other.
Mm-hmm. Now, while you mentioned, Kevin, that you will like this to be personal, on the flip side, talk to your CEO. Would you not want this to be a pervasive one-time relationship built, and then you reap the benefits of it for times to come? Because, of course, everybody's tenure is, at least an average tenure of a CIO is like 4-year minus today.
Right.
So if you've done this, you don't want this to be happening over and over again.
Well, except that if you're choosing people that already has part of the prerequisite for the position is to be able to create relationships. I think that's a leadership skill that if you don't have it, CEOs that are savvy would not be putting you in roles that really require relationships. And I think most senior positions require relationships. I mean, you think about mergers and acquisitions, many of those things have been accomplished by relationships on the golf course between two CEOs. So you never can say, I can put somebody who is not a strong relationship builder in a senior role and expect them to be as successful as they could be. So that's, to me, a cost of entry for any senior role.
So, Jerry, wouldn't it be awesome if we have this perpetuity with respect to once positive, then, life is good, we could go play golf?
Yeah, I mean, I think underlying the relationship, in fact, I'd focus it down onto one characteristic, and that's trust. Do your colleagues trust you or not? Does your boss trust you or not? There's so much technological ambiguity in so many things that we do, and so many easy-to-blame people and situations that really it comes to, did you do what you said you were going to do? Do I believe you when you speak? Or do I have a big ampersand against your name, or an asterisk against your name, and have to check the footnotes every time we have a conversation? I think that's the nub of it. You see, because building a relationship sounds a bit like, it'll sound to some people like, well, if they like me, everything will be okay. And I don't think it's that, frankly, at the executive level. The question always comes down to, are you of value to me? And the core of that determination is, do I trust what you say? So presuming that you're competent, because if you're incompetent, I can't trust you. Presuming that you're competent, do you tell the truth? Do you convey reality when you speak? Or are you off in a little dream world of your own somewhere? And I do think, in fact, all relationships are personal at that level, because you change out... it was pointed out to me a while ago that when you change your boss, you just changed your job, whether you know it or not. You come to the same office, have the same colleagues, but your job has just changed. And that's because you have to build that relationship up again from scratch. Now, your new boss, your new colleagues may come in with certain predispositions about, CIOs are always like this, people with English accents are always like that. And they'll start there, but then they'll change that set of beliefs as they interact with you. And I think the key attribute of those interactions is one of trust, but which works both ways, actually. Do you trust your boss as well?
So are we looking backwards and trying to find ways to get the trust built? Because without that, we would not have a job if the boss did not trust us, right?
Right. Well, they wouldn't trust us, and trust is at various levels. I mean, I could trust you to run operational things and not trust you to do anything strategic for me. So, I might well leave you in place because my vision for IT is that you just keep the buses running. So there can be plenty of trust, but that doesn't threaten your job, or lack of trust that doesn't threaten your job. But the question is, are you relevant to the organization? And that's kind of what I think we were talking about here. If you're the CIO, in fact, and not just like the director of IT, and in fact, I would say many CIOs are just the directors of IT, then there's got to be trust at a number of layers, or a number of levels. Like, do I trust you to have worthwhile strategic insights? Because everybody at the C level is capable of talking, do you actually convey any value when you talk?
Now, Brian, question is that if we were to go and we are trying to influence quite a big crowd there, would you just take a few who are truly seen as leaders, someone who other people look up to within that subgroup, or would you actually go for an en masse approach?
I think, there's, I think I look at it kind of from a dual perspective. You have really kind of two different type of people in an organization. The leaders, as you've mentioned, and then, maybe the steady eddies are the followers. It's if you have a relationship with a leader and you start to build momentum with that leader and can drive a direction, that is probably sometimes the easiest way to get your direction and process accomplished. But in IT, that's not always the case, and you sometimes have to go after the followers or the steady eddies and show them, hey, here's some ideas. What do you think? And kind of build them so that maybe they start stepping out of their space a little bit and making recommendations back up through the business, which then entails, say, wow, if you can start moving the people in the steady eddy state, sometimes that actually creates more momentum than just, grabbing onto the curtails of someone who's already a leader and vocal. So it's kind of, there's two paths to take. There's many paths to take, but I also think that sometimes in IT we have to take the harder path to maybe accomplish the same result.
So, Kevin, in the long run, would you rather have your every business user in line, or is that too much to ask for in terms of expectation of that we could really get buy-in from everybody there?
When you say in line, what do you mean by that?
In the sense, like in line in the respect of what I'm trying to say is, like, suppose you're trying to influence them in a positive way. Mm-hmm. The way one person thinks about IT in a positive manner, you also get another business user to do it. Because we cannot make everyone happy at all times, but then we can try to strive for that goal. Is that an impossible goal, would you say?
To make every business user happy?
Yeah.
I think it's difficult, but there's tools and techniques you can use to kind of get closer. And one, again, I go from expectations. I think that transitioning from an expectation that I ask for it, you guys work for me as a supporter, and I get it. If that's the expectation on one side, but on the other side, from an IT standpoint, we're trying to look at a corporate infrastructure that we want to have sustainability and the best plug and play we can, or if there's some future strategic goal that we're trying to achieve, and that person is going to not agree with us.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back and talk about the people who are the mavericks and or people who are not looking at IT as a change agent or someone which would really make their life any easier or better. You still need them. You still need to exert influence on them, so that since they're also part of people who will give you thumbs up or thumbs down. So how do you handle them? Please stay tuned. We'll be right back and discuss.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
Are you ready to go green?
You've asked, and we've heard you. Voice America presents the Green Talk Network. Environmental topics are at the forefront of our society, and the Green Talk Network is here to keep you up to date on the latest trends and innovations for the eco-conscious lifestyle. We'll help promote a variety of ideas on the environment, from global warming issues to how you can become more eco-friendly in your daily activities. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Visit the Green Talk Network page on voiceamerica.com and tune in to help spread the green.
Self-leadership is more important than corporate leadership. In the hustle and bustle world we live in, we need to be reminded that in all failures and successes, we are the common denominators. Each week, let Daniel Gutierrez help bring you the tools you need to manage self-leadership, resulting in self-success. Make your mark in your industry. Make sure you listen to Right Here, Right Now, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Business Channel.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjo Gal.
Welcome back. So, Jerry, we know that there are always mavericks out there, people who just want to be different for the sake of being different, or they may truly have issues and they don't see IT in the same light as maybe the majority.
Right.
You still need them and want to exert influence on them so that they're also on the same boat. So what do you do?
Well, I think there's two kinds of mavericks where I live, at any rate. There's the people that don't think we move fast enough and want to get out in front of everything and try new stuff, and are actually pretty aggressive about re-engineering their business processes. And there's another group of people that think we're moving way too fast, and what was wrong with the IBM Selectric anyway? And I think you have to respond differently to those two. The first group, I would want to co-opt and have them as my, canaries in the mine kind of thing. Like, you want to try some stuff? Here, let's get involved together. And, I have resources and institutional heft to make changes and to operationalize things and to harden up services. And my folks don't necessarily want to move as quickly as the technology enables them to. So if I can co-opt people that want to be quick moving and push new frontiers, that's great. On the other hand, if I've got people that don't want to move at all, that's a different kind of a problem. And frankly, you're just going to kind of use a lot more stick to deal with them and somewhat less carrot. And that's just by exposing the true costs of old ways of doing business. And to point that out to the line managers and say, we can continue to do it that way if you wish. It's costing you this much money every year to do that. And I could be saving you this much money if you'd automate these processes. So a lot of that, dealing with it, that side of it is good cost accounting and knowing the price of doing business in various ways. Ultimately, that second group takes care of itself. There is nobody making horseshoes anymore or buggy whips or thatching roofs. So it's really just a question of how much of a fist fight is it to get them to give up old ways of doing business.
So, Kevin, how did you see people who were mavericks being dealt in other business units versus how would you have done differently in IT? Because now in this case you are trying to exert influence over a much larger set of users with respect to us sitting in IT camp and the other people are in the outside camp.
Yeah, it's very different to be, to have line responsibility and control over an organization. To some extent, you can just, tell them to make it so, and they'll go after it. They may not achieve it as well as if you, convince them and encourage them and take that time to do it. But you don't have that luxury being an influencer from an outside organization. And also, if the decision that you're trying to get people to embrace impacts the entire enterprise, then you've got to do that with many, many people who are peers and sometimes seniors in the organization. So that influence piece that we're talking about, the whole program's about, is really critical for a CIO to be able to wield that influence. We have mavericks that are out there, cutting edge type items. One of the things that we are talking about and wrestling with is access to all of these social networking tools from the workplace, the Facebooks and the Twitters and all those things. And there's a segment within our organization that thinks that we're a year behind in that, and that group is now, as was said before, in a pilot phase where they have access to it, and we're letting them know about the security concerns and the productivity concerns and all the other things, and kind of using them as a test bed for that. And then there's others who think that's the biggest waste of time there is. And at our core, we're an engineering company, and who has time to do Facebook if you're in the middle of engineering drawings? So there are extremes, and as we evolve and mature in that space, eventually we'll pull the rest of the company along. But those folks on the cutting edge who want to be there, they can be helpful if you direct their energies for you. So I agree with what was said before.
Brian?
Well, it's an interesting topic because if you can align with the Mavericks, and you can actually they can be carrying your message as you go forward. It's actually very powerful. It also can be somewhat of a possible scorn because sometimes, as Jerry was saying, there are two types of Mavericks, and somebody who's really pushing the envelope, you could turn around and he could actually hurt your cause. So you have to be a little bit careful. But I think from when it comes to dealing with the Mavericks and dealing with those people that are really out there, the best thing you could do is to align yourself with them, if at all possible, so they can carry the torch.
So, if we are talking about the speed at which the business and IT is changing, and the people who are being influenced or the people who are influencing are changing, this is like a moving target. Could you ever reach the level at which you can take a sigh of, take a deep breath and say, yes, now we're done? Or it's going to be never complete and we will never be, getting the full benefits out of this exercise?
It's interesting the way you say that because, a good IT organization will try to put together a strategy of where they're trying to get to. One of the things I've always communicated as part of that strategy is the day I show you this plan will be the day it changes. We as an IT group have to be change ready, change driver, and the question you asked, will we ever be done? Hopefully not. Because the business is changing. So we have to keep up constantly with that business change so that when the business finds that opportunity, we need to be ready to pounce to help them achieve that goal.
So, Jerry, any quick comments?
Yeah, I mean, I had to smile when you made your comment there, Sanjog. I think the day when there's nothing to change and that we've arrived, we're basically out of work that day. I mean, our job is to be change agents and to use the transformative power of technology. And people that aren't using the transformative power, they're in areas like physical facilities right now. Because, there are no more revolutionary moves with electricity. If we go back 100 years, you had literally people called things like chief electricity officer and things like vice president for electricity because it was a novel technology. It was changing the way people did business. That's where IT is right now. If we're operational, then I go back to what I earlier said, if we're only operational, then we're directors of computing. We're just running a utility. And the only two things that matter in a utility are cost and reliability. That's it. If we believe that technology has transformative power, then we're change agents. And then the question is, how do we handle that agency within our institution? Who do we partner with? Who do we not partner with? I mean, all the topics we've been talking about for the last 50 minutes.
Kevin, very quickly, last sentence.
Yeah, I almost feel like I need to defend the utility space, but I won't do that. I'll just say that I agree that things will change, always change, and you're never going to be comfortable in a position where you can say we've arrived. It's an evolutionary process that continues.
On behalf of the show and our listeners, I'd really like to thank you, Brian, Jerry, and Kevin, for sharing your thoughts about how a CIO can actually be a successful influence manager.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you again. Now, being surrounded by so many individuals and groups who are not in your direct control, for an IT leader to be successful, of course, influence management skills are a must. You are gifted in this field, but there is hope for others as well, since it is based on core principles of how the thinking and doing things that you can first take care of the interest of the other party that you want to influence and gain their respect, and then request some cooperation and following from them in return is what is the way to go. Now, people and groups outside of IT department may see IT as you as one unit. So the effort should be that not only you, but as your IT crew also be trained to become the influence managers as a clone of you, and they should be along the chain of command within the IT organization. How are you dealing with influence management in your organization? Please send us your thoughts to views@ciotalkradio.com. That is views@ciotalkradio.com. Thank you again for listening to CIO Talk Radio. This is Sanjog Aul, your talk show host. Till next week, take care and God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Join Sanjog Aul next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific for another hour of CIO Talk.